Welcome back to On Texas Football's Tuesday night Longhorn Livestream presented by Andy Ludicky. I'm your host, Amanda Hatwell, joined by CJ Vogel and Jeff Howell. How are we doing? Week 1 in the books. It was a long one. How are we feeling, guys?
It was one of the weeks of all time. It wasn't great.
It was a week.
It wasn't bad. But I'm glad. I'm not glad it happened the way that it happened, but I do think this team, is going to be pretty hungry moving forward. So I hope that there's not too much pressure on Arch moving forward. And I actually do think Sark is going to do a good job of kind of molding this team, knowing that the wide receivers in that pass game could be a little limited early on, to just riding C.J. Baxter and Trey Wisner, Christian Clark, James Simon, Jarrett Gibson, those guys, and the offensive line that played well. So we'll see. We'll get into that tonight. Plenty of others. We're also going to play a little bit what do we call it? Good horn, bad horn?
Good horn, bad horn. I think that's what we pegged it.
We're going to play something like that tonight, Jeff. But all together, week 1.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about this game coming off a loss, but such is life. But hey, home openers is Saturday. You only get 6 of these, and in the spirit of let's keep it light. So my former colleague Josh Pate on his show, he has the chalice of supremacy that he drinks from. So in the spirit of that, I'm drinking from the chalice of mediocrity because I've got a 2019 Texas-Utah Alamo Bowl cup that I'm drinking out of tonight. So the chalice of mediocrity is in the house.
I guess that beats my cup.
Oh, I love pink. Wait, is that a Tri-Delta? I need to get you one of my Texas Zeta cups. You're repping the wrong sorority there.
You think one day you get some real cups and –
yeah. No, I have some of those too. I stole them from the sorority house. They are still in my pantry. It's been 9 years. We got them. But anyways, yeah, I kind of felt the same way. We recorded Moving Goalposts Sunday, and I really didn't want to record it, but then I got on there, and I'm like, I'm just basically venting about all of my frustrations from what I witnessed during this game. So I can only imagine what it was like actually being there to watch it all in person. But we're going to talk about that. But the biggest thing that came out today that we're going to talk about is the new polls. So we got the AP poll and the coaches poll, and obviously Texas did not stay number 1. Unfortunately, deservingly dropped down a few points. What are y'all's thoughts? We got, I believe it was 6 in the coaches poll, 7 in AP. What are y'all's thoughts here about the teams that are ahead of Texas? Are they in the right spot? What are you thinking?
That feels pretty fair to me. I mean, let's keep in mind, I know I saw a lot of folks talking about the drop Texas had from 1 to 7 after losing to number 3, who moved to number 1. Look, Texas scored 7 points. What, do you want them to just move to 2 and be all right? No, you got to put up a fight. I know Texas did defensively, but you can't have a one-sided team and be one of the best in the country. So, look, 7 is inside of 12, right? That's where you want to be. That's where you want to stay. There's plenty of time to go to get right. Of course, there's plenty of time before the college football playoff polls release. And ultimately, as long as Texas takes care of business, over the next month or so, it's not going to really matter. But 7 feels right, especially considering what the teams above them did. LSU put on a great performance in Clemson. Miami looking legit again this year. I did mention, Jeff, I don't know if you remember, but I had a flyer on Carson Beck 30-1 to win the Heisman. I'm not saying he's off to New York, but that's a good moment for him. Good start.
It's something. I was shocked. Beyond Carson Beck, I was just shocked that Mario Cristobal did not make any decisions that cost his team that game. So that's a step in the right direction for the U. But I don't want producer Matthew to cut my feed, so I'll quit talking about Miami. But for Texas, look, I'll give the hooligans in Columbus and their penchant for partaking in skullduggery. I'll give them some credit because we talk about Sark struggles with I didn't think it was a great game plan. I didn't think their adjustments were great. Arch didn't have a great day, but man, you got to give Matt Patricia some credit. Like, I've going back and watching the game, and I'll have my final thoughts over at on TexasFootball.com tomorrow. Like, I thought they did a great job disguising their fronts. I thought they did a great job of not a ton of simulated pressures, but I thought they did a great job of showing pressure and then dropping out of it, just playing coverage, trying to make Arch fit the ball into windows where – your first start on the road with the talent they've got on the back end, do you really want to force that ball? So I give Ohio State a lot of credit. And, yeah, I mean, the thing that the further removed we get from Saturday, guys, my take is Arch didn't play well. Sark's game plan wasn't great. The defense didn't have any splash plays, untimely penalties. Yet you still had the ball in the last 2 minutes with a chance to go send the game into overtime. Like, as bad as it really reminded me of the Oklahoma game in 2023. Like, it's Texas that day. What did they play, CJ? Probably a C- game against OU, and still had the lead late with a chance to win. So it kind of reminded me of that, where, man, you didn't deserve to be in that position, but somehow you were. I think that speaks to the talent on this roster. Look, I think the frustrating thing is some of these issues with playing a clean game in these big games is stuff that's kind of haunted Texas. And until they get that cleaned up, we have to wonder whether they're going to take the next step. The problem with that is we won't get a gauge of that until they get to Gainesville in October, because for the next 3 weeks, it's I think the three of us could probably suit up and maybe have a puncher's chance at getting some stuff done the next 3 weeks.
I like that.
I don't know about me. I got 2 bad knees, but I could certainly try to throw the ball and hit somebody. I was pretty good at powder buff. But yeah, anyways, guys, get your questions in. Super chats pop to the top of the chat if you have any questions for these guys or us. But yeah, I feel like that was a common sentiment among fans of just seeing some of the same problems you saw last year returning, especially the red zone issues, and just that not being addressed. So what are y'all thoughts on that as just like the reaction of these kinds of things from fans?
Yeah, the red zones, look, that has to get figured out. I don't know what the easy solution is. I don't think there is one, but I'm watching other teams waltz into the 7 or 8 yard line and instantly find simple throwing concepts, whether it be on a rollout, whether it be in the pocket, quick hitches, curls, run to vacant spots, something like that we just don't see. And I know Sark likes to utilize one-on-one matchups in the red zone. And I know he likes to pound and ground in the red zone. We saw Texas get to the 9 yard line and run the ball 4 straight times. And yes, you were moving the ball well, but at some point the creativity is just out the window. And I think it gets very easy for opposing defenses to understand what's next. Anthony Hill mentioned that in the postgame in the postgame press conference. He knew exactly what was coming when Ohio State got to the red zone their first time. He knew that Julian Sain wasn't going to tote the rock. He wasn't going to sit back, drop in the pass, and throw the ball. No, he knew what was coming. He just misplayed that 4th down stop, and that's what allowed C.J. Donaldson to fall into the end zone. And I'm imagining that's very much the same for Ohio State. When Texas got in the red zone, they knew it was going to be an Arch Manning run. Texas was going to rely on C.J. Baxter and that offensive line to do as much as they can. And when it comes down to it, it was going to be an Arch Manning step back and a counter, or it was going to be power left or right. And again, I mentioned this on Twitter. I've talked about it on shows, but holy cow, that was the most predictable QB sneak of all time on 4th down. There's got to be more creativity. And we've talked about it. It feels like Sark gets to that area and just tries to power it through. And it doesn't happen like that against really good teams. And it's cost Texas several wins over the last few years.
I'm coming down to the fact that I don't like when these red zone issues happen. And again, it's multi-layered. Like, there's not just one reason why it's not working. I don't like Sark sequencing calling plays in the red zone. It's not the play calls themselves, but like, go back again. I hate going back to this, but like the game against Oklahoma 2 years ago that they lost, go back to that sequencing. Like the tunnel screen call to Xavier Worthy wasn't a bad call, but because you call it on 4th down, like, you left yourself no margin for error. And what was it, CJ? Was it 2nd down? I think that they ran the toss to Jonathan Brooks into the boundary. Like, toss into the boundary on the goal line, like it fire that thing into the sun. Like, I don't need it. And that's kind of what the 2nd down, like you said, it was kind of a quarterback counter. I don't know what it was with Arch that they were trying to do, but it wasn't like a run pass option. Like, you were quarterback run all the way. It was telegraphed. I didn't like it. It's not there. It should be building to something. And there's times where, man, I don't know if he's just out thinking himself or overthinking it or what, but it just feels sometimes like Sark's just grab bagging it, just calling plays just to see what works. So I do think Rod and I talked about this today for a video that's on the channel. We were talking about some overreactions, or is there substance to, and we'll do a little bit of that tonight. But I go back to the first failed 4th down, and At this point, I'm convinced it was an RPO, and either Arch just didn't read it right, or he was told just, hey, just hand it to Baxter, like don't even try to read it. Because if you look, as much split flow as they run, CJ, on their split zone, like Jack Andrews didn't block anybody. Like he's straight up just going out into the route.
There's space.
And if Arch just pulls it, you've got the ultimate conflict for a defender out there. Either he goes with injuries and Arch runs it, or he comes up to get the quarterback and Arch dumps it off for an easy completion. And I'm like, that's a really good short yardage play. If you start to figure out your issues short yardage between the 20s or at any point in the field, do you then start to find some things that work in the red zone and down around the goal line? So I think it's all probably connected somehow, but again, that's what these next 3 weeks. And look, the next 3 weeks, like Gen Pop is not going to care how many yards, points, whatever. Texas could go 10 for 10 the next 3 weeks in the red zone, and nobody's going to care. Can they find an identity? Can they find stuff that works? Can they find something to hang their hat on? Like, that's the key. It's not necessarily the production. It's, can you come out of this 3-game stretch feeling like, all right, we can go into the swamp and feel like, boom, we can hang our hat on, fill in the blank. That should be Sark's goal for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and one real quick little add-on to the sequencing is you look at that, one of the red zone failures, right? I believe is the 4th down throw to Parker Livingstone in the corner. I love that play call. We don't see a smash concept in the red zone very often. I look back at the Arizona State game in overtime, the 2-point conversion to Matthew Golden. That was a great play call. We don't see it that often. Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder, why go there in a do or die situation where you're throwing the ball from one hash to the opposite corner of the end zone about 20 yards away from the goal line. That's a tough throw, and you do that on 2nd and 3rd down when you're trying to, really get ahead of the chains, or you're trying to just steal a touchdown out of the 4 downs that you have right there. But on 4th down and goal, I mean, that's tough. That's a tough play to hang your hat on, as you're talking about, Jeff, on your final play of a drive.
Yeah, it goes back to, I think you just want to plant seeds of doubt in the defense. Like if you throw it on 2nd down, then it becomes, all right, well, 3rd and goal. I mean, they could just line up and run it, but they just threw it. So create as much, mental static, for lack of a better term, for the defense as possible. I see Vivek B in the chat ask, Jeff, is Sark too hard-headed to realize he needs to adjust his whole red zone approach? Amanda, I don't know what you thought about it, but I wrote this in my initial thoughts, and here we are Tuesday night, and I still believe it wholeheartedly. I gave Sark a label something I used to accuse Tom Herman of. I thought that was an arrogant game plan. Like it really seemed like Sark went in this thing and said, hey, we're just going to play him straight up. I think we've got just as good, if not better, talent, and we can just go pound the football and just go straight up beat Ohio State. And I think for a guy like Matt Patricia, you're wondering, okay, what's going to be my counter punches? How am I going to get it? Like, you really never had to go, for Matt Patricia, never had to go that deep in your bag. Like, I would imagine he didn't get all that. It didn't look, CJ, like he got all that complex with the kind of game he was calling. So I don't know. Again, going back to other games where we've seen Sark or the offense struggle, kind of reminded me again of the TCU game in 22. Like, you started to figure some things out, but you wasted like a whole half of football before you really started to get a feel for what was going on. So I don't know. It was not Sark's best day, and really the best way I can describe it, just out of character for what we've seen from Sark the last couple of years.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I got to the point where I just kind of thought, at what point does he take the points? At what point does he go for a field goal instead in these instances? At what point do you just take those 3 points and then it's at least not a 7-0 game at half? So that was just kind of my thoughts. And then also it's even more frustrating in hindsight when you don't take those points, obviously, and then you try to push and here you are with 0.
Yeah. So, like I feel the same way about taking the points or not, or going for it on 4th down or not. There are times where I agree with the decision, but I just don't like the call. Like that failed 4th down I was talking about, I agree with the decision because of the field position and it's early in the game. I like the call, just didn't execute it. Mm-hmm. On the goal to go with the quarterback sneak, I didn't necessarily agree with it, but like I understand what Sark was doing. Like, you finally got momentum, You hadn't, busted a grape all day on offense. You get down there and it's like, you feel like you just can't come away with 3. And even if you fail, like you've got them backed up, can your defense make a splash play, force a turnover, get a safety? And then either way, you're coming down there with points. Maybe Sark just overthought it from that point. But again, like the quarterback sneak, it just doesn't, that's not really your DNA. That's not who you've been. That's not who you are. And it really looked like a team trying that out for the first time, trying to figure out. And that situation, that opponent, that's probably not where you want to take a new concept in a critical down and distance. You don't want to take it for a test drive against Ohio State.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand. We'll talk a little bit more about Arch in a second. We're going to move on to one of our sponsors. Thank you to Andy Ludicky. Are you looking to diversify or new ways to make money? Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net can help you do just that by finding you businesses that will fit your time allotment and financial goals. Call him or email him to learn more. He's got a really cool process that identifies the perfect fit for you. Email him now at Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. Now, moving on, what everybody's been talking about this week, Arch. Now, less about Arch, and we all know how he played in this game. We all watched it, and I know you guys rewatched it a few times more than you probably would have liked to have rewatched it. How does he move on from here? How does he kind of regain the swagger that we talked about him having last season? What kind of made him special as a quarterback?
I anytime something like this happens, I go back to when I played high school football. It was my sophomore year, and we just had a forgettable game. And we watched the tape, what little the coaches want to show us, and then, kind of the symbolic deal. Coach pops the tape out of the VCR, puts it in a trash can, gets some, I think it was like nail polish remover, and sets the tape on fire. If I'm Arch, that's probably what I do symbolically, because like you just want to forget that. But at the same time, like there is stuff he can learn from it. The one thing I think he can probably learn from it is there were times, and CJ, I think we might have been talking about this today off camera. Like I don't want to say Arch got happy feet, but it's like the clock in his head was sped up when it didn't really need to be at times. It's almost like I don't know if the game was moving too fast for him rather than he was making it move too fast, if that makes any sense. So I think just slow down, play your game. I think one thing Sark did hit on, trust your athleticism, trust your legs in the open field. I think that's the thing. We know Arch can process, like we've seen him do it before, but I just think, regulating the clock in his head, I think is a really, really big deal.
Yeah, this upcoming week's going to be big for Arch. I guess the next 3 will be, to get the speed of the game right, because he was sped up. He was flustered. And I think a lot of that came because of what he expected to see against Ohio State. And what I mean by that, what was the last extended snap series that Arch saw? It was against Georgia. And there's probably not a faster front in all of college football than what Georgia had a year ago. And I'm imagining he probably felt he was going to see that exact same level of heat, that same level of pressure, that same speed off the edge, especially with the brand new offensive line going against Ohio State, the defending national champs, at their own house. I'm imagining if I'm in Arch's shoes, I'm sitting there thinking, I've got to diagnose at a faster pace. I've got to get this ball out quicker. I've got to make sure that I'm not getting hit with the ball in my hand because there's going to be pressure on me regardless. And I think the biggest 2 points I could point to and say, all right, this is why I think this is, look, very early in that game. Texas has an opportunity, and Arch drops back. He's trying to find Jack Hendries on a slow crosser across about 3 or 4. I think it was the 4th down or 3rd down. And he's on Connor Stroh's backside. And he ends up airmailing Jack Hendries. It's an incomplete pass. And there's room in the pocket. But I think because it took such a long time for that play to develop and Hendries to kind of get across the field to a place where Arch wanted to throw the football, he's sitting there thinking, someone's coming. I got to get this ball going. And he doesn't realize where he is. So he ends up on the backside, kind of like piggybacked on top of Connor Stroh to try to throw that football, and it's errant, it's incomplete. And you're sitting there thinking, well, you kind of had a pocket there. The feet aren't great, but you don't give yourself enough time there. The other point I want to talk about, I mentioned this before, but play action. When Texas is under center and they go through the full play action, they turn Arch Manning's back to the defense, and he turns around and says, all right, now I've got to diagnose everything already a second or two into the play. Well, that's tough to a guy that, one, is not used to the level of disguise and coverage that Matt Patricia is throwing at him at Ohio State, but also, two, understanding that internal clock and what he's anticipating being much more sped up. I got to get this ball out quicker. And there were times where Arch immediately went from read one to check down. There's a time where he hit C.J. Baxter very early on a 2nd and 5, in which he had a guy running scot-free over the middle of the field. So guys did get open, but I think that internal clock, and again, going back to that play action concept, 5 of 10 for 26 yards with a pick and 2 turnover-worthy plays. If that doesn't tell you that he is not seeing or not necessarily understanding the speed of what he's given in that pocket, I don't know what else is. Because turning your back on a defense like that spooks any young quarterback.
No doubt. Yeah. I would say too, look, he's going to learn from this. And now we get to see the one thing I've been most excited about with Arch. Well, two things I've been most excited about with Arch. One, this young receiver group that we talk about, like, I think we're going to see a lot of, Dalen McCutcheon, Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, maybe even Michael Terry the next 3 weeks. Like, see if you can expand that receiver rotation. Plus, he needs to continue to get on the same page with Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore and Parker Livingston. So I think this skill group growing with Arch, but something we even saw last year, like you look from again, it was against ULM, but Arch didn't play like a super clean game against ULM. Look at the mistakes he made, cleaned up almost all of it the following week against Mississippi State. So like that week over week improvement, the fact that he can make those changes, that really excited me about him. So I want to see if he can do it. And I really believe by the time Texas goes to Gainesville, you'll get a completely different quarterback. The way he sees the game, the way he processes, just the whole deal. You see a different guy in Gainesville than you saw in clubs. And CJ, I don't know if you could see this or not, but like on the broadcast, like it didn't feel like the Arch Manning we've come to see, where you do see a little bit of the swagger. You do see him puffing his chest out a little bit. Like we never saw that guy. Yeah,
I think Sark mentioned that. He said, look, when you go 3, 4, 5 possessions without scoring, I think you don't have any room to have any swagger, right? You kind of have to tuck your tail and walk back to the sideline knowing that you just don't have it that day. But from the start even, I don't know if he necessarily came out with it. And we've seen it. He's got it. I think if Texas were to play, when Texas goes to the swamp after maybe 3 dominant performances against these non-conference guys, I think you'll see a little bit more. But I'm with you. There were some jitters, there were some nerves there, and I hate to say it, but I definitely think he was rattled around that third quarter.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about Arch and a lot of negatives, but we'll move on and talk about some more positives that you can pull from this Ohio State game in a minute. Jeff, I'll let you tell us about our friends over at Duck Camp first.
Yes, dove season has started. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there. Out there is whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers, which, goodness, you'll need that on Saturday at DKR, to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook 'em. Shop duckcamp.com today. And again, thanks to Duck Camp for sponsoring this edition of On Texas Football.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you so much to Duck Camp. Moving on, let's talk some positive, some good horn, bad horn. Some things we actually liked from this. Let's start with the good, though. What are some things that can be pulled away from this game that fans can be optimistic about? Because, I hate to say a moral victory, but 14-7 was on the road at the reigning national championship was by far not the worst loss that we saw this weekend in the SEC alone. So what are some positives that you can pull from this game?
CJ, I'll throw it to you. I didn't think they'd run the ball as well as they did. And the fact that they showed some diversity that we did. They ran some, I can't remember them too many instances, maybe a couple where they ran outside zone. I just don't remember seeing it that much, but like the pin pull stuff that they were doing was really effective. I thought the tight ends blocked really, really well in the run game. So, and there's room for growth. Like they left some meat on the bone, but I didn't think they would run the ball as cleanly as they did at times.
Yeah, and there still has to be some room cleaned up, right? Guys that were pulling weren't necessarily driving and kicking guys out. So there were at times specifically where you pull and you get stuck and it creates a log jam. That happened specifically on the goal line with Connor Stroh coming around to tackle a CG pull. They pulled him and Cole Hudson. And you get stopped, and then all of a sudden Arch has to either make the decision of still going inside and abandoning, his pulling center, or logging everything and following Cole Hudson, in which that's not the hole in where it was designed to go. So there's still plenty to clean up. But yeah, I'm with you. You see it here, 120 yards on 26 attempts by your two running backs. That's a great sign. I do wish Texas had some more creativity to get other guys opportunities to run the football. It took until, well, let me do some quick math here. It took, 50 minutes to get Ryan Wingo a touch design behind the line of scrimmage on that reverse. I would have liked to have seen maybe a DeAndre Moore get a touch on a jet sweep. And that's not a big part of Sark's offense, but at some point you got to manufacture touches to get into space. And that didn't do it. There wasn't enough of that. So on top of that, look, I didn't think defensively Texas had many busts. You point to maybe Jalen Gilbo getting beat deep, but it's not a bust. You just got beat. A bust is communication, not being where you need to be, not having, a guy in a designed area. So Texas having that communication on the road week one with some new faces back there, huge positive for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I'll throw in Leonga Lafau and Grayson Littleton. Like the two plays, even though one got negated because of the Colin Simmons penalty, but defending that crosser by Jeremiah Smith to get on it after Jelani McDonald fell down to kind of recover and make a play on the ball, and then defending that slot fade against Brandon Ennis. Man, you can't defend a slot fade better than that. And for him to do that as a true freshman in the opener, like we talked about it, like certified ballers are going to be the true freshmen that were on the field and like legit like position snaps in that game. Dalen McCutcheon, Lance Jackson, Nick Townsend, Grayson Littleton. I don't think I'm missing anybody, but those four, and not to say that they don't have it because it's the number one class in the country for a reason, but man, those four, buy stock in those four guys now if you haven't already.
All right, we got two horns, so let's get one more good horn comment from y'all. One more good thing, because I'm tired of hearing about bad. What else did you take away from this game?
I mean, I could go Leonga Lafau, who I thought had a spectacular game. I'll go with Jack Boomeister.
I hear a lot about the punter in the comments. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of punter comments.
Yeah, they call him the kangaroo, of course. He's from Australia. They also call him Unk. He's the oldest on the team, as we found out on Monday. But a great showing. If Texas is able to pin teams back 90 yards before they have to go before they score a touchdown, Texas will probably actually – let me make this assertive. Texas will not allow a drive of 90 yards or more for a touchdown this year. I don't know if that was the case a year ago, but 90 yards, I don't care who the opposing team is. No one is going 90 yards on one possession to score a touchdown on this Texas defense. I just don't believe that to be the case.
Yeah, I'll say that I already mentioned how well they blocked in the run game, but I'll single out the tight ends. Jack Indry's making the catch late when he knows he's going to take a shot, and I thought Arch threw a really good ball. CJ, I actually texted you when I started my rewatch on Sunday. Like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't realize he was in the game. But, man, about the third or fourth play from scrimmage, Nick Townsend comes in and blocks back across the formation. I mean, he knocked the hell out of somebody. So I'm like, dude, if he's that willing of a blocker, like, you got something with Nick Townsend. So the tight ends, I think the offensive line, again, I just tip my hat to those guys, man. I thought they played well. Connor Stroh, I thought was really good. Cole Hudson, I appreciate a center who can pull and get out there on the edge. And again, it kind of gets lost in the sauce, but man, there was that drive right before halftime where Ty Anthony Smith made two really, really big plays. So seeing some depth on defense, again, the offensive line, I was really surprised, and I'm kind of digging this tight end group so far.
Amanda, let me hear a good horn from you, because we've talked about it.
A good horn from me?
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't touch on there?
I was gonna say the punter. That's why I've tossed that out there. I feel like punting was a big thing. I mean, we go back to Michael Dixon of those years of just like having a very, very good punter, of somebody who can pin them deep. I say that's the reason why I can't remember what year it was where Texas only won 5 games, and that is why most of those games were won because we had a decent punter. My college years were very sad being a Texas fan, if you can tell.
I'll agree, though, too, with Paxton. I thought the interior defensive line, as many guys as they played, I thought those guys did a really good job against the run. In addition to Bowmeister, I don't know about him as a punt returner, but, man, if Ryan Niblett can be that good of a gunner, game in, game out, yeah, you're going to dominate field position. You got a chance to.
My other good one that I'll toss out there, though, is one that a lot of people had questions about, which is the O-line. Everybody was very concerned about the O-line, and I think I only really saw one really bad miss, and it was on the 4th down throw where the block was just missed. But otherwise, I mean, I feel like it held up pretty well considering who you're playing against.
Yeah. And again, they brought a lot of twists. Obviously we've talked about, I think Twitter found out a new word today, this week, the coffee house stunt. Ohio State ran that 4, 5, 6 times. I mean, it was one of their, go-to tricks out of the bag for Matt Patricia. But I'm with you. I do think the offensive line played well. They held up very well. I'll also add this. Rewatching the game for the, nth time today, Arch's ability to just create with his legs in the second half, I was thrilled with. Now, I got a bad horn as a result of this, and it's those designed runs. I don't know specifically if all of these are power. I don't have the headset. I don't know. But I would love to see a little stutter, right? You get the snap. More times than not, when quarterbacks have those design counters, design flow runs, you got to wait for offensive linemen to set up the blocks. And I thought there were times where Arch was too quick to get on the backside of his lead blockers. And so what I mean by this is you get the snap and you take a false step, right? You one step drop back almost. You don't even move that front plant foot, but you kind of turn your shoulders and then you go. And you follow wherever you're pulling tight end or guard, whatever it is, whatever the play is. I thought there were 3 instances, and I'll tweet about it tomorrow. I thought there were 3 instances on Saturday where Arch was just too close to his lead blockers, and as a result, he's getting basically tackled by his guy, by the backside of his guy. So maybe that's a wrinkle Texas adds, but altogether, if that's the optimistic route that we're taking with Arch's legs, is hey, show me more of that. I want to see more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now with that game is behind us. Move on to next week. Obviously a much different caliber of an opponent. How do you get better as a team when you play in a league like the SEC, playing a team like this that does not have the level of talent that Texas does? And that people might say you don't need to underestimate anybody, but it's just the fact. Texas has a much more talented roster. Yeah. How do they get better in games like this?
Jeff, you want to take it?
Yeah, I think you just try to look at what San Jose State does and compare it to somebody that's going to be on your schedule in the SEC. And basically say, all right, this is a chance for us to get familiar with fill in the blank. Now, there aren't that many teams in college or anywhere anymore that run the run and shoot, but I mean, it's going to be a really good test for your secondary. I think because of the conditions. Look, an 11 I know it's only supposed to be in the mid 80s on Saturday.
The high's now in the mid 90s.
Okay.
I got very sad when I saw that too this morning. Our meteorologist said there was going to be a heat wave, and I was like, no, there's not.
Forget that then. 11 a.m. on that field, it's going to get real soupy real fast. So you're going to have to probably play a lot of guys on defense. So you'll get those young DBs a lot of work. So I just think it's all about taking advantage of the reps that you're going to get. It's not about the personnel you're facing, not even necessarily about the scheme. Just take advantage of the reps you're getting, because honestly, for some of those young guys, that could be the difference between whether you're on the travel squad for some of these SEC games or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly where I was going to go. Where can Texas get better? It's the depth. It's the young guys proving that, one, they have the talent enough to play in these games, but 2, they have the trust of the coaches. And that's something, again, Jeff, we could talk about wide receivers all day long, but for Sark to come out and say that these guys aren't ready to see the field, even for a handful of snaps, perhaps a bit concerning there. So for depth, all across the board, Nick Townsend, Nick Brooks. You look at the defensive side of the ball, Cade Phillips, Jonah Williams, Bo Barnes. I want to see all these guys get on the field, and they will. Over the next 3 weeks, all of these guys will see time on the field. But ultimately, how much trust can they earn from this coaching staff? That's how they get better for the duration of the SEC.
All right, and we'll get to some of you guys' questions here in a second. I'm going to move on to our friends Mark Saunders, Allstate. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, serving the Austin and Round Rock area and all of Texas, is the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin Round Rock area and all of Texas, give him a call at 512-218-8571. All right, guys, get your questions in. Super chats pop to the top of the list, and we'll start off here. Thank you for your chat. Aloha Traveler. Rewatched the game today. Arch was starting to cook a little bit in the fourth. He made 3 throws in particular that were NFL-level elite throws. That finish to the game had me feeling much better about the rest of the way.
I love that, and I'm with you. I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on this, and folks in the chat, let me know what y'all thought Arch's best throw was. You got a couple of options there, right? The Livingstone touchdown, the injuries reception. I actually think that 4th down throw was spectacular to Parker Livingstone. We talk about the 3x1, the 2 digs and the corner route. That ball was that far away from the outstretched arm of the diving Ohio State. That's a tough catch for Parker Livingstone, especially his first career reception. I believe that would have been at the time, but that's a tough throw to make. That's a really good ball placement. That's the throw where I looked at it and said, this isn't as bad as I thought.
I like the whole shot, the cover 2 whole shot to injuries down the sideline. Love that throw.
I think that was my favorite too.
It was just at that point, it was for me, you had the deep post route to Ryan Wingo that was covered up, but that's the type of 50-50 chances that I wanted to see more of. And I know that Ohio State has 2 of the smartest safeties that cover more ground than anybody else in the country. But you're telling me there wasn't one opportunity to throw a 50-50 fade ball? Ohio State, how did they score? A 50-50 deep ball to one of their wide receivers who made a hell of a play. I didn't realize until today that Carnell Tate double caught it. Mm-hmm. That ball was that close to getting popped out by Jalen Gilbo. So for me, if you can't move the ball, just why not huck a prayer? And I think Texas finally did that, and a couple of those prayers were answered. Do that earlier. Trust in your quarterback and those guys to win those plays.
Yeah, the deep shot they took, that deep crosser to Wingo, not the one that was not the ball that was intercepted, but the one I think it was late in the first half where it ended up being – actually it was a great play by Ohio State. Yep. I think it was Matthews to recover on that. That's a ball where it wasn't necessarily a bad ball by Arch to me, but like if I'm Wingo, and I think this is more maybe a Chris Jackson or Sark thing than it is on Wingo, I've got to teach my guys to fight for the ball in a way that you basically demand a DPI.
Yep.
Like,
yep, I'm with you.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something you can coach or what it is, but I gotta see more from the Texas wide receiver core trying to draw defensive pass interference. I know that's like a nitpicky thing, but I just haven't seen. I see other wide receiver cores do it. I'd like to see Texas do it, especially with as many deep shots as you're probably going to end up taking this year.
It's savvy. It's a little, I don't want to call it bush league, but I mean, it's playing the game the way that, folks don't think of, but it's a learned trait. I would say go full James Harden when you're out there, earn your weight at the charity stripe.
Even if you get up and just like demand the flag, like just like doing a flag motion, like where's the flag? Like I had a baseball coach one time that told me, and CJ, I don't know if this worked or not, but he said, hey, more often than not, if there's a bang play at second base, like you're throwing a runner down and you're the second baseman or the shortstop, get up and show the ball to the umpire and like put it in his face. He's like, more often than not, man, that umpire will get fired up and just call the guy out, even if he wasn't. So yeah, you gotta just demand it a little bit.
You gotta game it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was just seeing that Arch could respond when everything is bad. When everything is bad, it's not over yet. There was a little bit of drive left in there. He got out of his head a little bit, because I think the biggest thing is when you're an athlete, you get in your head when you miss those things that look easy, even if they're not easy technically, that they look like they should be easy for who you are. He could get out of his head and try again. That was the biggest thing for me, and make some really good plays while he did it. So it's not the end of the world. The sky's not falling. But speaking of Arch, when Arch can throw the ball under 100 miles an hour within 10 yards, we'll be in the natty. Your thoughts? I think that's a little dramatic, personally. What are you guys' take?
Hey, Billy, this is something that I'm sure Texas wide receivers haven't seen over the last 3 years either. So I don't think there were any instances where I thought a ball was, I don't think Arch was Randy Johnson out there on Saturday. I think more so the accuracy is what failed him, not the velocity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back to the mechanical issues, just not, again, getting too sped up, not setting his feet. If he just breathe a little bit, just take a little bit extra time. But again, he'll grow from it. Like look, what happened after the game, the fallout, is exactly what I thought would happen if Texas lost and Arch didn't play well. Everybody nationally has got their take, and they're running it into the ground. That everybody's click farming at this point. I'm not going to push the panic button with Arch Manning. Like, I see too many things that lead me to believe he's a guy that Texas can go win a championship with. So, yeah, I'm not by any means jumping off of the bandwagon.
Yeah, I completely agree with that there. One more here from Cash. Thanks, bud. Not sure what that's referring to, but thanks so much, Cash.
Thank you, Cash.
Thanks, bud. Moving on to Sugarcane Daddy, not the crop. Forget the haters. I'm holding on to my betting slip, Arch for Heisman. That's my quarterback. I love that attitude.
I did look it up. Texas at 750 to win the national championship. I don't know if people like value in here, but there might be something to that.
I've still got my two slips, my national championship slip and my Arch for Heisman slip. I ain't throwing either one away.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I giving up on a quarterback after one bad outing seems like a bit of a bad move for a fan base, in my opinion.
To that same point, I know Texas fans have tried to, direct some heat off of Arch, but I think there's some validity to this. I mean, Kate Klubnik in year 4 did not play well against an LSU defense, which was atrocious the last 2 years. Obviously, they've improved, but you complete 50% of your passes, you score 1 touchdown, you lose by 7 at home. You score 10 points if you're Clemson, in which a lot of teams are projecting you to walk away with the ACC. Kate Klubnik, just like Arch, up there in the Heisman conversations. There were other quarterbacks that did not play well against good teams. And as we've talked about for the duration of this channel, defenses early in the season will always be ahead of the offense.
I mean, look, I've lived through the 2016 Texas back win over Notre Dame, 2 Tom Herman losses to Maryland. I've lived through those to know there are no overreactions to results like there are overreactions from an opener. So it's usually never as good as you think it is, but it's usually never as bad as you think it is either.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Lonnie Love here.
Hard to drudge that memory up, Amanda.
I don't need to remember any
Maryland losses.
No, and one of my best friends is married to a Maryland guy, and he loves to remind me even to this day that those games happen, which anyways. Lonnie Love, I'm concerned Sark has tunnel visions when using a script, but does Sark trust AJ or Kyle to call plays to help Sark see the big picture? They help create the game's plan.
I would say no. And I say no because we've never seen it. It's been 5 years now. I've never seen or heard of anybody else calling plays unless it's a 50-point blowout. Could there be suggestions? I hope so. Does Sark take them into account? I hope so, but I can't say for certainty that that's the case. And again, we've talked about it, year 5 now. What have been some of the lingering issues that we've seen from this Texas program that haven't been resolved? Red zone, opening drives, third quarters, short distance. I think it's probably time to at least start listening to some of these suggestions.
even I was kind of hoping maybe Neil Brown would fill some of that role, but I I don't know. And maybe I don't know. Maybe Paul Christ served some of that role when he was on the staff. But yeah, I think getting somebody on the staff that Sark respects, not to say he doesn't respect his current assistant coaches, but respect somebody enough that they can be honest with you and give you, open, honest feedback on what you need to do in those situations. Like somebody, not saying it's this guy, because anytime a Texas staff opening or a special assistant job comes up, everybody brings up his name, and I don't think he wants to coach at this point. But like somebody like a David Cutcliffe, like if you can find somebody like that and get him on staff, I think that would help Sark quite a bit.
All right, going back to that Heisman talk, CJ, do you expect Arch to be a Heisman candidate this year? People are expecting that out of him. It's too much.
After week 1, I think we're all kind of in agreement that there's plenty of room to go before that conversation even is uttered. So right now, probably not. It's funny. I kind of joked in the press box at this game on Saturday. I said, you know what? Like, Texas probably won't win this football game, but at least Arch is for sure coming back for 2026. I don't think it was received well at the time, but hopefully some folks can find some humor in there. But
I did see a lot of tweets like that of like, this is why Archie said that Arch was not going to the draft. I mean, I had to log off Twitter for a little bit because they got a bit. I don't know if y'all some of the AI stuff got a little bit too far, but
yeah, I've had to avoid the Twitter machine and Facebook and Instagram. I've minimal usage by me over the last few days.
Yeah, probably a good call in your best interest.
I'm glad for Arch's sake that I don't think Arch uses social.
Yeah, I don't know. He said before that he loves to scroll, so maybe
if I were him, I wouldn't be scrolling this week.
Get off every form of those apps.
I'd have had my phone on like airplane mode for the last like 4 days.
Yeah, scroll on your film or something. I don't know.
Like the main. I'll say this though, Amanda. Like the main thing that's kind of, I don't know, the hype was out of control, so the overreactions are out of control. Thank goodness, like you've at least got Kalen DeBoer and Bama to at least take some of the heat off of you.
I got a text from one of my friends who's an Alabama fan. He's like, "We can be sad together." I told him, "I am so sorry. Your sad and my sad are not the same thing right now. I think they're two different levels of sadness because mine has a hint of optimism to it still. I don't know if I would feel optimistic if I was an Alabama fan currently."
Yeah, Alabama fans, you got like, 15, 16 years of Nick Saban, so I don't want to hear anything. You should be okay with being all right for a few years.
Yeah, I think they can.
They won't be, like Oklahoma fans. They can't understand that. Hey, sometimes in college football, you go through lulls, but
a lot of Oklahoma fans do not understand that they are currently in a lull, though.
No, that's a fan base that needs a really, really good dose of humility too. Like, yeah, you got to, from Bob Stoops to Lincoln Riley, that's 20 years of, where you're pretty much in national title contention, if not every year, almost every year. Yeah, you can deal with a few 6-7 win seasons.
Yeah, we surely did.
4 or 5.
I just happened to be in college during all of those, and I'm obviously not bitter about that still. Anyways, speaking of
Amanda, what years were you in school?
I was at Texas because I went to a different college to play soccer first, and then I transferred to Texas. I was at Texas 2013 through 16.
But see, you were there for 22 really, really good wins over Oklahoma. Like,
the only time I went to the Texas OU game, we won. So I was like, okay, I am the good omen for Texas OU.
Yeah, the 2013 game where Case McCoy woke up and chose violence that morning, and
then the Charlie Strong on his shoulders game.
With the extremely elongated index finger. I still have no idea how the hell Texas won that game.
I was there and neither did I. I just know I was there. I was like, we've never been trailing. This is amazing. I didn't know this would happen. But yeah, that was one of my highlights.
Yeah, there were highlights of that game on thank you, Matthew. There were highlights of that game on YouTube or Twitter. I saw it this summer. And I forget, like, you have a Tyrone Swoops 18-wheeler touchdown pass to Caleb Blewett, and Texas is up, like, I think 24-7 at that point. And I'm like, dude, they are. I'm in the press box just thinking, and they are beating the hell out of. And that was an Oklahoma team that ended up in the playoff. So, like I said, I have No idea how Texas. And yeah, look at that. That is the longest finger in the history of humanity.
That is no, and I love that we won that game as well, because a guy I went to high school with played for OU and did nothing but talk crap the entire time. And then we killed them. He was the only player from my high school who ever made it to the NFL as well. So unfortunately, that fact exists. But we beat him that one game, so that's all that matters, in my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
Anyways, we'll finally get to this question from Tennessee Longhorn. Thank you so much for asking it. Who is our best player on offense right now? Is it too early to tell that currently? What do y'all think?
This is a good question. And I think the answer is going to change as the season continues, but I have a hard time not pointing to Trey Wisner and say he's your best offensive player right now. Again, that will change. Arch will get better. Ryan Wingo will improve. CJ Baxter will get more into the groove. I think, again, Texas had a pretty hard cap on the number of touches that they wanted to expose CJ Baxter to in week 1. Jack Indries is going to be in this conversation. We'll see how Trevor Gooseby also evolves. But you have a 1,000-yard rusher in your backfield right now with Trey Wisner. I thought there were a number of runs in that second half that I looked at Trey Wisner, again, just getting loose. Just, this is going to sound really weird. He's a squirmy runner. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is there's ways that he just kind of contorts his body to miss getting hit straight on. As a result, he falls forward, he brushes off contact, and he just extends runs that shouldn't go as far as they do. 80 yards on Saturday, great bright spot, and he did so by changing direction a number of times. I think it's Wisner. I think he's your most consistent floor of a player right now.
Yeah, what you said at the end, CJ, boom. Trey Wisner's got the highest floor. Like he's the one guy right now that you feel like no matter the opponent, location, game time, conditions, whatever, you feel like you know what you're going to get from Trey Wisner. Other than Wisner, man, I did not expect Jack Indries to be as willing or as effective of a blocker as he was in that game on Saturday. So if you can bring that and be a complete kind of 5-tool-ish tight end, you've got something. So yeah. I would throw Jack Indries in there too.
We'll get to some more of these questions in just a second, but we got to thank our partners over at Von Lane first. I'll let Jeff thank those guys.
Yes, I got to stop looking at the chat during you guys are outrageous. Yes, you got to get from one city to another, and like always, it's a toss-up. Do you deal with the airport chaos and hope your flight isn't delayed? Or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel battling traffic and burning a day? Now there's a third option, and it's better in every possible way. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into one of 22 oversized first-class seats with 140-degree reclining leg rests and a cabin attendant serving complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, full meals. Need to relax? Just lean back and enjoy the ride. If you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. Fall travel is booking fast. Reserved now for October trips to Texas OU in Dallas, F1 and ACL in Austin, or college football weekends in Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Von Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Nashville, Atlanta, Memphis, and now Knoxville, Tennessee, the Woodlands, and Plano. Visit vonlane.com and use the code OTF25. That's OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Von Lane, elevated regional bus transportation.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeff. We're going to get to some more of these super chats real quick. I'll pop up this one. Chris, Amanda, does Billy have a 2018 LSU 7 overtime cup? I would not put it past him. He has never showed me a cup of this sort, but I would not put it past him. I'll ask him that question though. I mean, my favorite story about this game is this was back when I was on TV for a living. I was sports anchor in Amarillo, Texas, and this was on an ABC station before our 10 p.m. newscast. So I was standing there waiting to go on the news, and they would go into another overtime. And I was so angry because it was A&M, and I was there. I think we finally went on air at midnight. I was there 2 hours late because of A&M. So that's my story of the 7 overtime game.
I'm sure if he doesn't have the cup, he's definitely got the ring that they made for that game.
They made a ring?
Oh, yeah.
Boy.
ring, T-shirts. They hung a banner, had a parade, the whole deal.
It's inscribed inside Kyle Field somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, they put that on the, however many national championships they claim. Like, look, if you want to claim a national championship before, Hitler came to power in Europe, like it shouldn't count. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like we gotta have standards when it comes to claiming national championships.
Is that the line we're drawing here?
It's a line I draw, Amanda, and I'll be honest, like I use Hitler way too much when I reference claim national championships. So I got to come up with a different kind of line of demarcation. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe do that.
I'll my history books and see if I can come up with something else.
I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah. Probably need to switch gears on that one.
Okay. All right, moving on. Isaiah, thanks so much for the question. Guys, don't want to be down on him, but DJ Campbell had 10 yards of penalties. Can't have penalty from our veteran guys. Also on the goal line run behind Stroh and Gooseby. Maybe different outcome, maybe not, but run behind your big beef.
Yeah, I thought Texas had some really untimely penalties from a lot of veteran guys. We talked about it. Manny Mohammed had the 5-yard holding on a play that would have forced a third down. Colin Simmons had that personal foul face mask on a play that would have forced a fourth down. Leon Lafau played a lot of football. Penalty that takes points off the board. And, of course, DJ Campbell. I went back and rewatched that play. Texas, first play of the possession, had a 9-yard run, and DJ gets up to a much smaller linebacker and kind of just he went around the shoulder pads just a little too much. I didn't think it was egregious. I think even most weeks you probably don't see it called. But when you get outside the shoulder pads and onto the nameplate, that's when that play is going to be called. So unfortunate, obviously, but for Texas, they got to clean it up. And they got to clean up the pre-snap. We saw a few false starts, a lot of, coffee not held by a first-time starter as well. That's a tough thing to do for Ohio State. But, yeah, look, with Connor Stroh, Jeff, I want you to talk about, follow the beef. He's a big dude, 345 pounds. Just
Yeah, and I thought he played really, really well.
Played admirably.
Yeah, and I thought C.J. Baxter made a really good point in the press conference yesterday because I asked him about the offensive line, and he was talking about Connor Stroh. He said, you'd have never known that guy was making his first start. Like, mentally, he was in it from the jump, like, wasn't intimidated by the environment or by the guys he was facing, just went in and got after it. So, yeah, and you know what? I mean, I thought there were times where when Neto was in the game, like, it looked like he responded pretty well to getting beat out because we'd all kind of penciled him in for that job. So, I was just beyond pleased with the offensive line. Like, I didn't have the bar set very high for that group, but they went entirely above and beyond my expectations for the opener. Couldn't be happier with the offensive line right now. I do like Stroganoff. I'll say that.
Stroganoff. I do like Stroganoff as well. I also like our sponsors. We'll get to our last one, and then we'll get to the last y'all's questions to wrap this out. Andy Ludicky again, stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general. Call Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. He will take you through a process to identify a business that will fit not only your financial goals, but also your skill set. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And I did notice a question up here. I don't know if I can find it anymore. Somebody asked me if I ever went to Otimo Taco and when I lived in the RGV, because that was my other stop in local television was the Rio Grande Valley. And I did. And it's awesome. I had the best beefsteak of my life. So if you find yourself in Brownsville, Texas, highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, probably not on my destination
but
list.
One of the benefits of living down there was the tacos. That was one of the few benefits.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ever on your way for South Padre, I don't know what you do for your spring break these days.
Are you a South Padre guy, CJ, or no?
No, I've never been.
Really?
It's not bad.
Never went.
Anyways, Sugar Cane Daddy again. Fans hating on Sark. I bet Bama would kill for him. Do we think Bama would kill for him right now?
I think Bama would kill for anybody not named Kalen DeBoer right now.
Yeah.
And I think DeBoer is a great coach. I think he's an awesome coach.
His
honestly,
post game was tough.
That Amanda is a gross understatement. And like, I respect the hell out of him because he took a job where he's in a no-win situation. if you win, you win well. It's Bama. You got Nick Saban's players. Like you just add water. If you lose, then you're the drizzling you know what's, and that's kind of what he's feeling right now. So
yeah. The craziest part of all of this is they said, Coach, on Monday, Coach, you said you had a good practice last week. What happened? Is this what you expect? And he said, when did I say that? It's like, oh boy. That's what you cannot do. So again, we talked about it. Bama, Oklahoma fans. I'll even throw in, the Golden State Warriors. They're due for some downtime. Come back down to earth. Understand what life's like for folks who haven't just experienced success all their life.
That's how you know you're a real fan, if you go through the really hard times. But a lot of them.
What does that make me as a Cowboys fan?
Tortured.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. This is what Taylor Swift traded to the Chiefs. So did I.
I get no badge of honor for that, and I accept my fate. I'm doomed to roam this earth with a mediocre NFL team the rest of my life. But I digress.
Yeah, I was born in Kansas City, so I can be a Chiefs fan. That is my reasoning. I'm looking at downtown Dallas, but I can't be a Chiefs fan because I was not born here. Moving on, Seth, how do y'all feel about Niblett's punt returning?
It can definitely improve. It wasn't egregious. There weren't many opportunities. I thought actually, Jeff, you'll get this reference. I hope folks in the chat will understand that as well. If Delino DeShields was a punter, he was Ohio State's punter. Because that was a noodle leg. There just wasn't any juice. There was no velocity coming off of those punts. And for the most part, they were probably falling 10 to 15 yards before or where, Niblett was lined up originally. Now, is that a scouting issue? Is that a Niblett issue? Because balls were hitting the turf too often on punt return. And as a result, I thought there was one time where Niblett caught the ball on the 26, fell forward to the 29 after it bounced on the 31. You saved yourself probably 10 yards. Now, I hope that can be replicated elsewhere because, again, there were too many lost hidden yards on punt return with balls hitting the ground and rolling. Those balls need to either be caught or they need to be caught off of a bounce and then immediately gone down. So I hope that improves, and I think a lot of that is scouting more than anything, just not lining up where you're supposed to be. Also, very unfortunate, the best punt of the game came on that final possession.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, that I said at one point during our watch with us, I was like, man, I'd play golf with this Ohio State punter because this short game's got to be terrible. Like it was shit. And right before the half, Coach Shipley and I were on the watch with us, and I said, Coach, would you try to come after the punt here? And he said, no. He's like, I don't want to risk a penalty. Want to try to get the ball back in field position. And I immediately thought, I'm like, he probably don't need to because he's probably going to shank it anyway. So there's probably really no need to try to risk a penalty, and he'll give you good field position regardless. So that's another thing. Like I really wish the offense would have cashed in on some of that good field position they had, but again, something to work on.
Yeah. Real quick, did anybody catch the TCU UNC game last night? I don't want to talk about Bill Belichick and whatnot, or the game itself. But I was watching TCU with one of the few punts that they actually had to do.
I did not watch that.
The ultimate punting flop once again. It's systemic at TCU. I know folks, if you watch that as a Texas fan, probably saw that and was like, oh, I've seen that before.
I just like the fact that the game got so out of hand they let Herb Street's dog fill in on color commentary.
I did see that. I woke up this morning, as I told y'all, I woke up at 4:30 this morning, so I had a lot to catch up on. Scrolling, and TCU football's Twitter, man, they need a raise. Whoever is responsible for that is really good at it. We'll get through a couple more of these questions before we go. Jonah Williams enthusiast. If Jonah was on the field, we win by 10. We'll be all right.
The name checks out.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. One more. Texas Boy Wanda. That's what that is. Mm-hmm. Are we surprised with how many carries CJ Baxter got? I kind of wish Wisner got a few more.
No, because I think CJ Baxter looked really good in the week leading up, the month leading up to this game. Again, around the start of fall camp, I'm probably sitting there saying, I'm probably not going to see a lot of CJ Baxter. And yet the two scrimmages, he looked really good. No restrictions, full athleticism. And this is, again, what we're now battling for Texas is how do you distribute all of these carries in the backfield, and to which running backs do you see them? I would say you probably hard cap CJ Baxter at 10, maybe 15 touches max over the next 3 weeks, but you see how much more you can stretch him in terms of what he can do schematically, outside runs, powers, counters, whatever, stuff like that. But ultimately, I thought he had a good showing. And again, Wisner with that floor, just hand him the rock, let him work.
15 touches was probably right at the limit of what I figured he would get. So, no, not surprised.
All right, moving right along. CJ, did you watch a movie from the watch list on the plane?
No. I sleep on all my planes. I know, Matthew. I'm sorry.
Excuses.
I know it. I've got my list right in front of me though, so I'm not forgetting. It's just I sleep on planes, and my ride back from Columbus was in Cincinnati at 8:15. So I don't know. Columbus is 2 hours away. You got to get there an hour before. I get there at 7. I travel at 5. I wake up at 4:30. Oh, by the way, it's Eastern time. I wake up at 3:45.
I'm just hearing a lot of excuses.
I was tired.
Anyways,
I will though. I promise I will.
Next, we're gonna check back next game. Also, Jenny, I'm a Chiefs fan too. Amanda, my mom and dad both from KC. Go Chiefs! I'm so sorry if you're a Cowboys fan, Jeff.
Hey.
When I was a kid, I'm like,
man, happiness recently.
No, by the time I was in the 6th grade, they had won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. I'm like, this is great. The Cowboys just go to the NFC Championship game every year.
What was that, 1993?
96. And that was the last time they went to an NFC Championship
I was
game.
about to say, okay, I was 3 years
born
old.
97, so I've never seen that.
I was 93, so at least you got to see them. So
yes,
that's all that matters.
Yes.
All right, well, that's about our time, guys. I think we got to all of our super chats. If you got more, come back tomorrow. We'll be back here same time tomorrow. Y'all want to do this again? Run it back?
Yeah, let's run it back. We'll have a surprise for you tomorrow. What do we say?
A surprise? Okay. I'm curious to see what that is. Okay, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Appreciate y'all being here. For CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe, this is On Texas Football Tuesday Longhorn Livestream, brought to you by our friend Andy Ludicky. We'll catch you tomorrow. I'm Amanda Atwell. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Welcome.